And what color did Mr. Boudreaux say the Jeep was when he was with Officer Marianne Robb?
Lori Vallow Daybell, cross-examining the lead detective in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux.
So did you not think it would be a good idea to do whatever kind of testing you could find out what kind of gun this was?
I take a look at his testimony and how court was delayed as the second week of the Doomsday Cult Mom's last trial begins. I'm Angenette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Back to the second week of Lori Vallow Daybell's trial in Arizona. Week 2 is in full swing after a drama-filled first week. This is Lori's final trial. She's accused of conspiring with her late brother, Alex Cox, to murder Brandon Boudreaux, the ex-husband of her niece, Melanie Boudreaux Pulowski. Prosecutors in Maricopa County, Arizona, say Alex Cox drove Lori's Jeep Wrangler to Arizona from Idaho in October of 2019 and took a shot at Brandon outside of his rental home, and that the only person who knew the address to that home was Melanie. Brandon testified about the shooting last week.
When you were coming in and sort of slowing down, what do you see happen?
So as I let the car kind of coast in, the back window pops up. I see a muzzle. I hear a bang. And you know your fight or flight kicks in at that point. So for me, I just immediately thought, and my window shattered. You know, all that happened in like the snap of a finger. And so I just immediately thought someone's shooting at me because I saw a muzzle. So I hit the accelerator and I just went straight. I no longer was planning on turning into my driveway to let the garage door trigger.
And then, of course, Lori did not miss her chance to cross-examine Brandon.
But I was not the focus of that entire argument. Is that correct?
My focus was my family, my wife and my children. I love them and I didn't want them to go through pain.
Is that what you spent all those hours arguing?
Yeah, because I love them and I wanted to work through things with my wife. Yes, I didn't spend it for any other reason.
And during this argument, there were several issues that you discussed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And one of those issues was Melanie informing you of text messages that she had viewed?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Is one of those issues a video of you on Facebook dancing at the pink pony that Melanie showed you?
Object to relevance to 404B evidence and 403.
Sustained.
Did Melanie show you a video of yourself
Object
during
again
that
to the same
argument?
manner.
Sustained.
You told Detective Pillar that someone had convinced Melanie that you were gay.
I can't remember if I specifically told him that someone had convinced Melanie that I was gay. I would have to review the conversation I had with him to be able to say for certain that's how I worded it.
Okay. Do you recall telling him that she has a friend named Lori? Melanie?
I did not say she has a friend named Lori. No.
You didn't? Would you like to look at your interview?
I
To refresh
said
your
that
recollection?
I said that she has an aunt named Lori.
Would you like to review this to refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, I want to tell you about a free app that I've tried. It's called Upside, and it will give you cash back on things you use every day, like gas, groceries, and takeout. You can transfer the cash you get back straight into your bank account. That's what's great about it. When I pump gas or I go to Dunkin' for a drink, I use Upside. I've even used it when I order pizza. Here's how it works. Download Upside, claim an offer, and pay as usual using a debit or credit card. Follow the steps and get paid. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan that QR code on your screen and use our promo code CrimeFix to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's promo code CrimeFix for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. So Lori was asking Brandon a lot of questions where it sounded like she was trying to get Brandon to say, hey, she was a good person. I really liked her. That led to Lori getting booted out of the courtroom by Judge Boreski. Take a look.
The state, the defendant, and advisory counsel were at the bench when we had that short 1 minute sidebar, but I don't know if anyone wants to supplement the record on that. Ms. Kay?
Just, Your Honor, that, again, the state did raise any issue of character evidence under 404A and 405, that if the defendant opens the door and tries to advise that she's a good person, a peaceful person, a kind person, a loving person, any of those other types of things, that we believe that would allow us under 405 to then bring in specific acts, such as the murder of her children, her husband, and her current husband's wife.
All right.
Which would also be 404B that they withdrew.
No, it'd be
Yeah,
405.
they withdrew it, but if you bring up 404 that you...
Then all 404B is in, or do we get a hearing on what 404B can come in? If I open the door, do I get a hearing? We stop trial and I get a hearing on...
Stop. We'll have a very short hearing, okay? If you're going to introduce how you have great character and good character, we're going to have a short hearing on what evidence that they can bring in to rebut that character, which could
Okay.
include being convicted of 4 murders.
And
So,
would you
talk
like...
to your advisory counsel during the break. And
You don't
maybe
need to yell at me either.
yelling at you, okay?
Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm
Take
very
her out.
courteous.
Take her out.
I'm very courteous to you.
Take her out. No, you have been nothing near courteous to me during the course of these proceedings. Talk with your advisory counsel about the rest of your cross. We're going to resume in 15 minutes.
So big time drama, big time drama. Then the cross-examination by Lori of Brandon resumed.
Brandon, how many communications since October 2nd until now have you had with Detective Pillar?
I have no idea.
How many phone calls would you say over the last 5.5 years?
No idea.
More than 10?
I'm sure more than 10, yes.
More than 20?
Like I said, I couldn't testify to the exact number, so I have no idea.
A lot?
I talked to him about my case.
More than 100?
I honestly can't tell you. I have never looked to try and figure it out.
Okay. How about text message communications with you and Detective Pillar? How many times have you communicated with him through text message in the last 5.5 years?
I've never counted, so I don't know.
More than 10?
I'm sure it's more than 10.
More than 100?
That I can't testify to. I don't know.
How about emails to Detective Pillar?
Same
How many
thing.
email communications have you had with him in the last 5 years?
I can't testify. I don't know.
More than 10?
That I'm not sure. I couldn't even tell you if I ever had more than 10.
I spoke with Drop Dead Serious podcast producer Lindsay Howler, who was in the courtroom for Brandon Boudreaux's testimony. But what I found interesting, Lori is basically trying to say that he staged his own shooting. That's what she basically suggested in her opening. Like, he has a gun, and he said this stuff on the 911 call, and he's trying to frame Melanie for this and frame her. I mean, that was what I got from her opening statement. So what did you make of Brandon's testimony, and how was the jury reacting to it?
So the jury was very attentive. They were listening along. Brandon has a compelling story. He went through everything, and he's a very credible witness. And you could tell it was emotional for him to even recount those things. He was truly scared for his life. As far as Lori saying that Brandon and the state and his private investigators, made up this huge conspiracy, just blamed Lori. Obviously, that really has no basis in fact. But we'll see. And it's also interesting. We're hearing a lot more about Brandon's ex-wife, Melanie, now Pulowski, who is Lori's niece. And they really have more of a mother-daughter relationship. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out as well.
Yeah, because she's a co-conspirator. However, she's not been charged.
Correct.
And I kind of, there's a lot there. So there's a lot of smoke. So
There's
I'm
a lot of smoke, and that's been a question that's been on everyone's mind for years now, especially after Chad's trial. Chad Daybell back in April and May of 2024, we actually heard some recorded phone calls that Melanie's now husband, Ian Pulowski, recorded of Melanie speaking to Lori and Chad, where they're very much in sync with this. Rexburg is the New Jerusalem. We're here. Detective Hermosillo is dark. You know, he won't let up. They want to find the kids. So it was pretty damning. And so now we're seeing Melanie brought up in this case, and, you know, she seems to be the one that would have the motive, although, like you said, she is not charged.
Again, Melanie Pulowski has not been charged with any crime, but she has been called a co-conspirator. Now we're in week 2, and we're getting into the evidence. Jurors have seen photos of the Jeep. The lead agent for the shooting, police officer Ryan Pillar, took the stand last Friday and told the jury about his encounter with the victim, Brandon Boudreaux.
This interview with Brandon Boudreaux, did you talk to him about who he thought might want to kill him?
Yes.
And did Brandon provide you with the names of some people he thought might want to kill him?
He did.
And what names did he provide to you?
He provided the names of Lori Vallow and the name of Alex Cox.
Did he advise you that there had been an incident that occurred in Chandler in July of 2019, and that was some of the reason for him identifying them?
Yes.
During your interview with Brandon, let me ask you this. Prior to talking with Brandon, when you were briefed, did you receive information regarding the vehicle that had been identified by Brandon as being used that shot at him?
Yes, I was provided a description of the vehicle that shot at him, or where the shot came from.
When you spoke with Brandon in your car, was he consistent with giving you the same information?
Yes.
Did he describe the Jeep for you?
He did.
Did he provide you the information about what state the license plate was from?
Yes.
Did he talk to you about whether or not it had a rear tire on it?
He did.
Did he talk to you about where it was parked?
He did.
Did he talk to you about what he saw happen right before the shooting?
Yes.
Was anything that he had provided to you different than what you had learned in the briefing as to that area?
No.
While on the stand, Officer Pillar elaborates more on the findings of the investigation and the whereabouts of their number one suspect, Lori Vallow.
Did you learn during this investigation that Lori Vallow had moved to Rexburg, Idaho?
Yes.
Did you learn in this investigation that Alex Cox had moved to Idaho?
Yes.
So in October then, Melanie joined them in Idaho?
Yes.
On October 16th, did you learn that a license plate reader had recorded Lori Vallow's Jeep with that Texas plate LWD 0997 on the I-40 on October 1st of 2019?
Yes.
Was that reader located in Holbrook, Arizona?
Yes.
How long before the shooting of Brandon was Lori Vallow's Jeep seen on that I-40 heading towards Phoenix?
That Jeep was seen on the I-40 heading towards Phoenix approximately 26 hours and 30 minutes prior to the shooting at Brandon Boudreaux.
Now, there was a break in Detective Pillar's testimony. Other witnesses took the stand, including a man who testified that he put tint on the windows of Lori's Jeep for Alex Cox. Detective Pillar's testimony then picked up Monday, and Lori got to cross-examine him.
And what color did Mr. Boudreaux say the Jeep was when he was with Officer Marianne Robb?
When he was with Officer Robb, he described it as a green-colored Jeep.
And what was the color of the Jeep that was seen by witnesses in the neighborhood?
It was referred to as different colors. What I surmised it to be was a darker colored Jeep Wrangler.
So did you hear dark blue?
I do not remember specifically hearing dark blue, but I know that color has been brought up.
And is it your understanding that the color that Brandon pulled up on his phone to show the officers was camo green? Is that correct?
That's what was discussed by Officer Rob, but I was not privy to that actual conversation, and there was no supplement that I saw that indicated that.
So as the case agent, you did not watch the body cam with Officer Rob?
I watched all body-worn camera from this case.
The body camera video seems to be very, very important to Lori, along with the different descriptions of the color of the Jeep by witnesses.
And so in the body cam, you did not see him actually show it to Officer Rob and Officer Bullock that were standing there?
Not that I recall, but again, I watched many hours of body-worn camera footage, but I do not recall that specifically. No, I do not.
Would you like to see it to refresh your recollection?
If we want to take the time to watch that. But I'm also not disagreeing that it very well may have been said or shown to be a camo green.
So when is the first time you wrote in all of your reports that it was a gray Jeep? So where did you glean that information that the Jeep was gray?
The gray Jeep came about from my contact with the Chandler Police Department on October 9th.
So Brandon never told you it was a gray Jeep, is that correct?
I do not recall him ever describing it in the initial contacts as a gray Jeep, no.
And none of the neighbors ever called it a gray Jeep also, is that correct?
Not to me, no.
Okay.
Then Lori questioned Detective Pillar about the trajectory, or at least his opinion of the trajectory of the bullet. That's the angle from which it would have been fired.
In your estimation, Detective Pillar, how far was the Jeep's when the supposed shot was taken?
With the information provided by Mr. Boudreaux and the neighbors describing where this Jeep was located, where I believe, at least at the time, where that glass shard might be related in the roadway, I would guess. I don't want to guess because we didn't measure, and I don't know exactly where the individual was in the Jeep. What I can say is it was within a few feet. And when I say a few feet, I'm going to say 10 to 20 feet of a moving vehicle approaching where the projectile hit the Tesla.
Okay, and why were no measurements taken?
We didn't know exactly where that Jeep was located. We had an idea of where it was parked, but we didn't have an exact location for that Jeep, a specific spot.
If it was parked nose to nose with that white van, you kind of know exactly where it was parked.
We have a good idea of where it was at, absolutely.
But no measurements were taken?
No measurements, no ma'am.
And what measures were taken to decide the trajectory?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay, did the Gilbert Police Department ever decide on what the trajectory actually was?
No.
So were there tests done to find the trajectory?
No, because again, we don't have the exact placement, the height, the angle in which the projectile came from, and we can't determine that with just the hole in the Tesla that was since moved prior to police arrival.
Then Lori pushed Detective Pillar a little more on the topic. She also seemed annoyed that he didn't have an answer.
What was your determination of what kind of bullet would make a hole that large?
I don't have any ammunition training or certifications to provide that answer accurately.
But from your own shooting experience, would you have thought that was a rifle or a handgun?
In my experience and training, again, I don't have it in trajectory or what particular bullets will do. What I do know is there's dozens of styles of bullets, whether it be a hollow point, full metal jacket, a frangible piece of ammunition. There's dozens of types of ammunition that are made, both of which can be utilized by a handgun or a rifle. The information I was provided, it at least seems that a rifle was the most reasonable weapon that was utilized to shoot at Mr. Boudreaux's car. But to give an answer for the type of ammunition, whether it be coming from a specific weapon, I cannot answer that.
Okay. And you're the case agent, is that correct?
Yes.
This is your investigation, is that correct?
Yes.
So did you not think it would be a good idea to do whatever kind of testing you could find out to find out what kind of gun this was?
There would be no way to find out what kind of gun this was.
There's no way to determine if it was a rifle versus a handgun?
No.
There's no way to determine whether it was taken from 30 feet or 10 feet?
No.
There's no way to determine if it was going up or going down?
No.
There's no way to determine if it was going left or it was going right?
There's evidence to show that it was going eastbound while the vehicle was traveling westbound.
Now, Lori sort of suggested in her opening statement that either Melanie might have had something to do with this, or that Brandon could have staged the shooting since he owned guns. Then Lori's line of questioning turned to gunshot residue testing.
So, having been a case agent hundreds of times,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure you've dealt with lots of gunshots, is that correct?
Not all cases were related to gunshots or homicides, but I have investigated other shootings and other violent crimes.
Have you ever swabbed someone's hands for gunshot residue?
Swabbed? No. Collected GSR? Yes.
From someone's hands?
Yes.
Because that's pretty typical, right? In a gun case where a gun has been fired?
Typical? I don't know if that's an appropriate word. Is it a tool or a evidence collection technique that can be utilized? Absolutely.
Okay. And so you're not aware that antimony, barium, and lead, all three have to be together for it to be gunshot residue?
I can object again. There's an expert that will testify to this.
It's sustained. He said he doesn't know this.
Okay.
She also questioned Detective Pillar about his interactions with Brandon Boudreaux's private investigator.
Detective Pillar, did you ever receive any information from Rich Robertson, the private detective Brandon Boudreaux hired?
I did not.
Did you ever speak to him personally?
I think I may have had a phone call early on, essentially explaining that he was going to do a PI thing, but he understood that there's certain legalities when it comes to criminal investigation over a civil investigation.
When you say early on, when do you mean specifically?
I couldn't give you a date, but I believe I had a phone conversation with him. But it was not lengthy, and I don't remember communicating much after that, if at all.
So in October, just after October 2nd?
Yeah, it'd have to be after October 2nd, 2019.
And was it your understanding from that conversation that Brandon hired him to track Melanie?
I'm going to object, Your Honor.
Sustained. Sustained.
What is the legal objection?
Well, it calls for hearsay. It's not relevance, and it also could open the door to something you don't want it open to.
So you did not email with him or text with him, Rich Robertson?
No, not that I remember.
And he didn't send you any kind of information on the case?
No, not that I remember.
Okay. Did Brandon ever convey that he was frustrated with the way the investigation was going?
I'm going to object to hearsay relevance.
Sustained.
But one point Lori really seemed interested in was how many times her license plate was picked up in Arizona around the time of the shooting.
You said one was in Holbrook?
One was in Holbrook. That's the one that's, I know is presented. The other ones I do not have independent recollection of. They are documented in the police report.
So you don't have any documented in Gilbert, is that correct?
There were no LPR hits in Gilbert, I can tell you that.
None in Mesa?
None in Mesa.
None in Phoenix?
Not that I can recall.
None in Scottsdale?
None in Scottsdale.
None in Tempe?
None in local cities. They were all highway cameras that were involved in this.
Now, where Lori Vallow Daybell is going with all of this, we'll find out in her closing argument. But she's saying she had nothing to do with this. In the end, the jury will have the final say. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.